Hey,
What's up?
what's up?
What's up? Welcome to the Swedish Transformers podcast that today is in English because we have a guest here.
Yeah,
Andrew.
or we don't presume. Maybe you can speak Swedish. I don't know. I haven't asked you.
Me? No, not a word. No.
Oh,
Sorry.
EJ learned Swedish for us. No, he don't.
Andrew Wildman, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Okay, well, as you said, my name's Andrew Wildman, not Andy Wildman. Sometimes I get credited as Andy Wildman.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll see that on some of the early issues of Transformers. Anyway, so I'm an artist and illustrator, worked in comics for many years, then I worked in the computer games industry, and now I work mostly for TV and film as a storyboard artist. That's it, really. That's all I've got to say.
Is there any movies that you've done yet, or any films?
I have, yeah. They're mostly fairly low-budget movies, so they kind of fall below the radar a bit. Probably the highest-profile one was a thriller starring Naomi Watts. You probably know Naomi Watts. Called Shut In. So you can find that. And the reason I did that was because it was directed by somebody called Farron Blackburn, who I'd worked with a lot in TV. And that was his first movie. That was through EuropaCorp. So it was a big company. Yeah, so he asked me to do the storyboarding on that, which was great. So I do live action storyboarding and I do storyboarding for animation as well. So I'm just finishing up an episode of a new, it's kind of like a superhero thing, I guess, for Netflix, animated thing. Yeah.
Nothing you can spoil.
No, I can't say too much about it.
Okay, Netflix and superhero stuff. We get it.
Yay. It's really fun how Netflix is actually getting more of these artists into their library and stuff like that. It's very fascinating. It's fun.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff in production because if there was any benefit to COVID at all, it was the fact that people kind of gained an even more of an appetite for content. So, so many people have watched everything on Netflix now.
Yeah.
All the good stuff anyway. So yes, a lot of stuff, despite the problems of getting into production, there is a lot of stuff in production. So that's really good. Good for me anyway.
Awesome. You worked mainly with Marvel Comics, the UK titles in the 1980, right? In the beginning, yeah. You worked on Thundercats and the real Ghostbusters, some XMen adventures, and Transformers. And if Wikipedia is right, your first Transformers work was with the issue 198 with Code, Comfort and Joy.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very fun. I really like it because we also talked about that this Christmas, and it was beautiful to see the artwork and the inking. You did inking on it.
No, Stephen Baskerville inked Cold Comfort and Joy.
Oh, it was your name on inking?
On the cover, I inked my own cover. I don't know what the cover was on that issue. Yes, I did. I inked the cover.
Okay, that's where I maybe saw it.
I still got that piece of artwork. Still got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Loved it. Loved all of it. Yeah. Should we go to the more of the Transformers questions?
Yeah.
I will handle them before Linda will take you in the artsy questions.
I'll keep my hands down now.
No, you can just ask if I miss anything, Linda.
Yeah.
And maybe many of these questions you have heard 1,000 times before, but I hope we can surprise you with some questions.
Yeah.
First things first. Are you a Decepticon or an Autobot fan?
Autobot.
Oh,
yes.
It's you and Linda them. I prefer the bad boys.
Why would you do that? Oh dear! I mean, there's enough badness in the world.
Yeah. So
exactly, Gustav. You can always turn back to the Autobots.
I'm not lost yet. I'm not lost yet. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
It's just a phase you're going through.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'll grow out
phase. Of it. If you were a Transformers character, who would it be?
Yeah, interesting. I do get asked that a lot, and it does change.
Ooh.
I guess given the age that I am now, I'd probably go for Prime. I'd probably go for Prime. If it wasn't Prime,
is this Rodimus or is this Optimus Prime?
Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I'd have gone for Rodimus Prime.
Oh, I see.
Actually, no, I'll go for Rodimus Prime. When I was younger, I'd have gone for Hot Rod, but now I'll go for Rodimus Prime. Yeah, definitely. Because it's all about Rodimus Prime. People don't realise that. He's the main character in the whole thing.
Rodimus has taken over.
Yeah. Is that your favorite character also?
No, I've had many favourites over the years, and it's largely depended on the characters that I prefer drawing. So that's an art question, really. But because I was never, people don't like me saying this, but I was never a fan of Transformers because I didn't know what it was when I was asked to draw it. That was the first time it was mentioned to me. I had no idea what it was. So that being the case, I hadn't watched the TV shows. I didn't have any of the toys. I watched the animated movie as reference for when they asked me to draw it. So the characters that I liked were the ones that I enjoyed drawing and whose visual story I liked telling in the comic books. So it changed because there were different characters that would, come to the fore. So often it was Prime, but then it would be Grimlock, and then it would even be, Megatron or Galvatron. Certainly, Galvatron was a favourite character of mine, just because the way that you could get the attitude by drawing him made him a favourite, but not because his personality reflected mine at all.
No, we don't have to.
I've had many favourites, but in terms of which character would I be, it would always choose to be an Autobot, and as I said, Rodimus.
You just said Grimlock because you made Simon happy saying it.
Yeah, well, because it was Simon's favourite character, he tended to appear a lot.
Of course.
So I just got really used to drawing him. I mean, I did prefer the characters with faces, which is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to Transformers, I suppose. But but Cup was a really nice one to draw. Yeah, he was a good character to draw. So I enjoyed drawing him.
Yeah,
these are all art questions. I don't know.
No, they will be more specific. Okay. I think. Yeah. But you said with the face, were the Transformers before their time with the face mask before the COVID?
Yes, of course. Yeah. No COVID amongst Transformers.
Yeah. But now they have the cosmic rust and stuff. But what's your relationship to Transformers the franchise? How did it begin?
Well, purely with Marvel UK. So back in the early days when I was, as Linda mentioned, when I was drawing some of the other books, I was doing Thundercats. I did some covers for various things, Visionaries. I did some Galaxy Rangers. And then it was when I was working on Thundercats that Simon saw the work that I was doing. I didn't know him at all at that point. And and he was looking for somebody to do some of the Transformers work. So because a weekly comic, you know, there weren't many pages in the comic, but he needed a good turnover of artists. So he just asked me if I was interested in drawing Transformers, and like I say, I didn't know what it was. I said yes because I just wanted more work. You know, I was young and, you know, needed to earn money.
It was a paycheck then.
Yeah, it was just about the money really. So I'd say yes to pretty much everything, and so I didn't know who any of the characters were, but that was the introduction to it. But as I started doing it, I enjoyed doing it, and people enjoyed the work that I was doing. So I just got asked to do more and more of it. So and then it just hung around, you know, for a while until it all went quiet after the Marvel book cancelled. But
oh yeah. Your last work with the Marvel was Spider-Man too, wasn't it? Or did I get it wrong, maybe?
No, I mean, so the Transformers stuff obviously was my introduction to Marvel US. So I did the Marvel UK books, and then they asked me to do the book for Marvel US, which was great because that was then enabled me to not just carry on doing Transformers, but to carry on. You know, to begin to work for Marvel US, which is what I really wanted to do. I mean, I never wanted to draw robots, really. That's not why I started drawing comics. I have a great fondness for Transformers because it was so important to me at the beginning of my career. And working with a writer like Simon, it offered so much scope, really, in the things that you could draw and the adventures that you'd be on. But Marvel cancelled the book. You know, Transformers went through those very kind of fallow years. And fortunately, I managed to then get on to other Marvel books until the last thing I did for Marvel US was the final issue of a book called Force Works, which was an Avengers book.
Yeah.
So I did 1.5 issues of that. I did half of the penultimate issue, and then I did all of the final issue. And I still think that's the best comic work I ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, the number 8 of the US comics that's a really nice one.
Right. I think the issue of Force Works that I did was 20 something, I guess.
That was also nice.
Yeah, so the Force Works stuff I think was the best that I did. In terms of Transformers, it was a bit of a difficult start getting kind of settling into doing it for the US. That many number of pages in a book, you know. But I think we really got into a groove with it. You know, Simon was really enjoying the scope of. I mean, he was already writing the American book, but he liked the scope of telling, you know, big cosmic dramas. Which was great. And so it was like a sci-fi epic, really. So being able to draw that, you know, 22 pages every month was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. And it really was a shock when they said that it was going to be cancelled. We didn't really have much forewarning.
There was like 3 issues before, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, Simon would know the details of that, but it was really quick. I mean, Simon was already beginning to plan out the next kind of long storyline, and he was very generous with the ideas, in as much as, you know, he would talk to me about what kind of thing would I like to do and all that kind of thing. So we were planning ahead and looking forward to what was going to be coming up, and then all of a sudden he had to wrap it up in a couple of issues, which for a writer, I mean, Simon's capable of doing that, very definitely, but he's somebody who likes to write long stories. So to wrap it up so quickly was a hell of a challenge. But you know, we did it, and I think we did it well, really. But it was a story not completely told, which was why it was great when Regeneration One came up as an opportunity.
How long would it take you to draw a comic book? in those Transformers days?
Yeah, well, it was because they're 22 pages a book, and they're a monthly book, so you have to draw a page a day, just over a page a day, and plus the cover as well. So I would draw a page a day, sometimes a little bit more. But I used to try and very slightly stagger it. So I would, as I got to the end of the day, I would finish a page and then I'd start the next one, even if it was just to quickly kind of rough it out, so that when I came into the studio the following day, I wasn't starting with a blank piece of board. You know, it's nice to start with something where the thought process has already begun.
Yeah, and it's, if I remember right, you paint on an A3 page, so it's quite big too.
Yeah, roughly A3.
Yeah, and traditional ink.
Yeah, American books are 11 by 17 inches, so they're slightly narrow and slightly taller than A3, but essentially that.
You can still buy them on your web page, I saw.
Sorry, say that again?
I saw you still sell them, some of your art from those days, the original pages on your webpage.
Yes, I do, yeah, because I mean, after working for, 10 years or so for Marvel, doing 12, if you're on, one book, you do 12 issues a year, 22 pages an issue, you end up with a lot of artwork. You look back at because they send most of it back to you. They send a few pages to the inker. I think they send something like, I don't know, a couple of pages to the colorist, maybe a couple of pages to the letterer, and then the inker will probably get 5 or 6 pages, and then they send the rest back to the penciler. So you do end up with a lot of work. So then, because it used to arrive from Marvel US office in FedEx boxes, like Federal Express. So they'd ship it back in these boxes, and I'd just keep it in the boxes and stack it away in a cupboard. So after a while, you look and you think, I've got hundreds.
What am I doing with this stuff?
Pages of artwork. So when you get to about 2,000 pages, you think, wow.
Whoa. Yeah.
But I've sold it over the years. Various people have kind of asked me, and I've sold a few at conventions. So all the good stuff goes, but there's still a lot of good stuff there. But the Transformers stuff pretty much all went. The G.I. Joe stuff pretty much all went. Those were the ones that people really wanted to buy.
Mm.
Mm.
What do you prefer, G.I. Joe or Transformers, or the combination?
I really enjoyed getting onto G.I. Joe after Transformers, purely because it was the opportunity to draw real people. Because my long-term aim was to get onto the proper Marvel books, the superhero books, and getting one of the editors to give you a Marvel superhero book straight off the back of doing Transformers was almost impossible. They'd be like, yeah, you're good at drawing robots, but we don't, you haven't got enough to show us of drawing like real figures, real humans. So to get onto G.I. Joe was great for that, and I really enjoyed it. Larry Hama is a great writer. So it was a lot of fun to do, but towards the end of my run on that, the reason that I stopped doing it was because I got very young children at the time, and my son was probably about 4 years old then, I guess, 3 or 4 years old, and he would come into the studio and he'd always be interested in what I was drawing, and he loved robots, all that kind of stuff. But I was doing G.I. Joe, and he said to me, "Oh, what are you drawing, Dad?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm drawing G.I. Joe." And he'd say, "What are they doing?" I said, "They're shooting their guns." What are they shooting? They're shooting other people. And I just thought, this is crazy. I'm not up for this.
Yeah.
I'd kind of ignored that fact. But then with the young children, I thought I wouldn't want my children to read that kind of content. But so I stopped doing the book, and I moved on to onto books where people just hit each other instead. Although many years later, I'd met Larry over in New York while I was doing G.I. Joe. But many years later, I met him when he came over to the UK. And I told him that story about, you know, the violent aspect of it. And he said, because I never really used to read them, I'd just draw what was described, you know. I mean, obviously I'd read it, but I wouldn't really absorb it like a reader does. And he said, well, I always tried to use the conflict in the books to tell a positive message and all that kind of stuff. And I'd completely glossed over that. So it's not that he was writing violent books for violence sake. He was writing them, you know, within the context of telling a positive story, so or making a difference. Anyway.
So it's fine drawing the robots killing each other, but not humans.
Well, I guess none of it's fine, really, is it? But
one last question before Linda will take over.
Yeah, sure.
I guess everybody asks you your favorite cover or project or anything, but I will ask you this instead. What's your worst nightmare you have done? The worst thing you can remember you have done in your career?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that question. What would it be? Well, in terms of the work that I'm least happy with, or the most difficult job, or
that's up to you. What do you think? Something you really remember that really pains you remembering?
Okay, well, maybe it's not exactly the kind of thing you're asking, but something that was very sort of difficult for me, I guess, at the time that I did it was I was working on XMen Adventures. And for the covers, they used to let me do the interiors fine, and they would very rarely come back with any changes, very rarely. So, but with the covers, they liked you to do at least 2, just like little sketches of what you think the cover could be. So I'd usually do 2 or 3, sometimes 4, and then fax them over. It was that long ago, didn't have email, fax them over. And then the editor would choose one, and then you do that one. But it came up to issue number 6, and I think I did 2 or 3 sketches of what I thought the cover could be. And I sent them over, and they came back to me and they said, well, they're all fine, but we think we want to go with sketch A. And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, why? Which one do you prefer? And I said, well, I prefer sketch B, you know, the second one that I did. And they're like, okay, well, I'll go back to the chief and say that you'd rather do that one, although he has chosen A. So, you know, are you sure you want me to actually go back and say that you disagree with him? I was like, well, yeah. And it was okay. So he went back and asked him, and then he came back to him and he said, okay, I've spoken to him, and he doesn't agree with you, but he said you can do cover B, but you just need to know that he's not happy with you doing that one. So it was completely on my shoulders, because, you know, people very often react to covers. You know, that's the thing that people say, wow, look at this cover, wow, look at that cover, you know, all that kind of stuff. But so the book came out and the sales figures went up. Ooh. From how they were before. They went up quite a lot, a significant amount. And so they did come back to him and they say, well, we're glad you kind of stood your ground, because it was definitely, you know, it's definitely a good cover. Not only that, but that image has been printed on T-shirts and all sorts of things.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Nice. That's the magic, when the artist actually knows better than the producer, was it?
Yeah, well, it was the person who was in charge of all the X-Men books.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was so busy working on all the proper X-Men books. And I think to him it was just like, do that one. But then when somebody said, we think you're wrong. It's a bit like, whoa, well, if you know, but I think his attention was on the other books. But me and the editor at the time, we were kind of more involved with what the flavour of the story was and what we thought might be the thing to push it more. So sometimes you're better informed than the people who are further up the ladder because they've got so much other stuff to deal with. So I'm glad we stood our ground, and it has become a cover that a lot of people remember as their favourite cover of my run on the books. In fact, somebody got in touch with me not all that long ago, and they said, "Is it still available?" And I said, "Yeah, I've still got it, but I'm not selling it." But I said, "I'll do a recreation of it for you." So I did a cover recreation, which he was thrilled to bits with. So.
Linda, you'll have to post that picture when we add this episode.
Yeah, I can post that picture. I'm a big fan of XMen, of course. I'm a big fan of a lot of things.
Okay.
Nerd.
I know. I love it.
But then I'm done with my questions. So Linda.
Yes.
Take it away.
I'll take it away all the way to Cybertron. Oh shit, I have some old questions here. My papers. Must have missed something here. I'm sorry. Let me just... Why? What happened? What did I do with this? I must have missed something. Well, how professional. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm sure you can think of some off the top of your head.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, what I know, you worked a lot with the inking more than with coloring. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So I've always penciled, but I did ink a lot of my. I did ink quite a lot of my own work originally. Certainly covers. Coloring is something that that's a whole other thing. I've never been good at colour.
Because I noticed that at least with your style, you have this very nice hatching style of the inking, and I actually really enjoy to see it. It's this question came out really badly. I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the covers that I did for IDW? I did a series of covers for IDW a few years ago, with that very inked kind of line work.
Very sketchy or very like liney shadows and stuff like that. Do you work still with ink, or have you gone like to the more digital style? Yeah,
those covers, those particular ones, there were 6 of them. They were all done with ink. Yeah. And I did all the covers for the UK Classics collections. They were all done with ink and in a similar style with very kind of the
hatching.
And that's the style that I've used on a few things. But doing the storyboarding for TV, I do it all digitally. But I always prefer drawing comics with pencil and ink, because you have a nice piece of finished artwork. And with my own projects, the graphic novel that I did it wasn't inked actually, it was all drawn with pencil, but then coloured in Photoshop. But the book that I'm doing at the moment, Oxygen, I started off doing it as inked panels, penciled and inked panels, because again, I wanted to have finished original artwork. But during the first lockdown, I moved all the stuff out of my studio. I've got a studio in the town where I live, but I moved it to home because they were saying, work from home if you can. And so I didn't have all my gear with me, so I'd be doing my storyboarding on my big Cintiq screen. And then because of COVID, some of the television work that I was working on was put on hold. They couldn't do it because they couldn't get people, actors together and all that kind of stuff. So I had some spare time on my hands. So I thought, I want to carry on with my own project, but I haven't got all the stuff here. So I thought, why don't I just do it digitally using the storyboard software that I use? Because the nature of Oxygen, the book that I'm doing, is that every page is 3 panels. So they like storyboard panels. So I started doing it digitally for that. And I would probably always do it digitally now. You know, a lot of people do anyway, but so I do enjoy, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to change things. But the disadvantage is that you don't have a finished piece of artwork to sell for somebody to frame and put on the wall. But
yeah, I also recognize it. I've done just a few comics in my short lifetime yet, but like the thing with that, when you ink something and you actually get the page, you can actually pull it out and sell it and get a little bit more payment, which is really nice for the artist. And for the fans, of course, that they actually have something physical to frame in. That if you love Transformers and you want something real from the artist, then of course it's really hard to change something that goes wrong unless you go in digitally, or that you put a post-it over it. Or I sometimes be cutting paper to put something over an inking that I wasn't proud with, and then just drawing on it. That worked too.
Yeah.
But like it's something that I'm never probably going to show.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when it was all, you know, it was all hand done. Yeah, people would, and you'd use process white, which is like white paint. You know, we could paint over bits.
Yeah, white ink or something like that.
Yeah,
The
ink it. Yeah, but that's the beauty of it, because when you have original pages of art, you know, I've enjoyed the fact that, you know, when I've collected original pages of art from other artists, you can see the ink on the page, and you can see the work, and that's when it's a piece of art. Then
it is something. It becomes something more like what's the right word, organic, when you have like real ink. You can't really get it, even if you have a synthetic Wacom tablet or screen or whatever you use. You just don't get in the same way, because ink still has its own way of flowing. You can't really control it 100%. I was also going to ask you if you use like these inking pens with the tubes, you know, or if you like dip your pencil in ink and then draw.
I always used to use a brush. I'd use a dip pen for some of the finer detail, but I would mostly use a sable brush and dip it in the ink, fairly small sable brush. So a lot of my inking was done like that. The stuff that I'm doing now, like you were saying with those covers where there's the hatching, the more recent inking that I've done, is all done with like fountain pens. So you buy fountain pens that have got a slightly flexible nib, and then just draw ink up into it. I mean, I have done work in the past using like fiber tip pens. I did a 4-issue series of Venom, and the covers for those Venom covers were all done with fiber tip pens, but I don't use those anymore because they're for the most part single-use plastic, and I think
they were also like hard to control. Or maybe that's just me. I throw that in the trash.
No, you're right. They don't. They're like a lot of things. You know, there are plus points to them, and in other ways they're not so good. But I stopped using those purely because there's enough single-use plastic going into landfill or into the oceans. You know, but no, I can't be doing that.
So, what artists do you look up to when you were collecting this original piece of art from who, and who's your favorite artist?
I think my 2 favorite artists, purely because they're the ones that inspired me so much when I was very, very young and as a comics reader, John Buscema was the the artist for me. I mean, his work on the Avengers and was just absolutely incredible, and that's what made me want to be a comic book artist when I was very, very young. Most people are either a John Buscema fan or a Jack Kirby fan, people of my age who've read comics. And I love Jack Kirby's work, and his work on Thor was incredible, but I just preferred John Buscema. And then as I was getting more towards college age, you know, kind of late teens and then towards college, Barry Smith's Conan work I thought was incredible.
Yes, we have been also talking about Conan in another podcast, and I'm a big fan of Conan. Like also the inking, but also what Frank Frazetta did with Conan. Yeah.
I mean, John Buscema did some amazing Conan work, but I preferred Barry Smith's Conan work, and that was a huge influence on me. So there were others that also inspired me. I suppose Neil Adams, I thought was incredible. His work on Avengers and XMen. But those are the ones I single it down to. In more recent years, I've kind of gone back to an appreciation of like a sort of a side strand of things that I was interested in when I was younger. So I don't know what it was like in Sweden, but in England, American comic books were very, very hard to get back in the late 60s and early 70s, which is when I was reading them as a lad. They were very hard to get, so you would tend to look for anything else that was a bit like it. So, you know, other kinds of comics, and I bought all sorts of stuff. But I found in a bookshop, I found some European books. So as a young teenager, I was looking at you know, Mobius and Druillet and all that kind of stuff. So I had quite a collection of that kind of sort of stuff, but I largely ignored them when I started to try and carve out a career in American comics. So I became then influenced by American work. Even when I was on Transformers, I was influenced by Jim Lee, just the way that he composed pages very much. But more recently, I've gone back to some of those early European influences. So Mobius is very much, has been an influence on Horizon and now on Oxygen, that stuff that I need to do.
I was really thinking about Mobius when I saw it, and I love it. I love the style so much. I'm just happy to see it. Love it.
Good.
Let's see. How do you feel that your art has been evolving from beginning to end? Or, well, it's not the end now, I hope. Please don't die.
No, I'm not planning on it, you know. But how's it evolved? It certainly got better in the early days, you know, and at the time you feel like you're improving, but you never feel you're good enough, which is how you need to feel as an artist. You know, when you get to the point that you feel that that's it, you know, you're the best you'll ever be, then there's no point carrying on other than for the money. So
you can never be the best artist in the world. That's just
no, you can't. And I think and that's what keeps you improving and improving. So looking at I think the stuff that I did for Transformers US, I was happy with. But when I look back at that and some of the earlier stuff, you know, the Transformers UK stuff, it was okay, but I definitely moved into a different gear once I started working for Marvel US. I think there's a difference between Transformers and the Transformers work and the G.I. Joe work, but towards the end of G.I. Joe and then into X-Men Adventures, that's when I really started to become, I felt like I'd become a Marvel artist then. It had improved quite a lot very quickly, probably because of the amount of pages that you have to draw. I was always pushing to, like I say, I was very influenced by Jim Lee, and I was always looking at his work thinking, what is it that makes his work look so good? Certainly when he was doing The Punisher, and then when he was doing Uncanny X-Men, when he got his own X-Men title, and they had all that sort of stuff that eventually became Image books, it was getting a bit too stylized for me. But certainly his early X-Men work I thought was amazing. And I think for me, I hit the point of feeling like I'd finally got to where I wanted to be with Force Works, but because it was my last Marvel book, I was unhappy that it was my last book, but I felt like I'd finally got there as a legitimate Marvel artist. I always wanted to improve after that, but I was glad that by the time my work at Marvel was finished, because they were cancelling so many books, I had actually achieved what I felt was worthy of those top books.
That's a beautiful feeling. Yeah,
it was. And I think if the industry had been more healthy, I think I would have fought hard to stay on, and I think I would have stood a good chance of getting onto some of those other books. But things happen for a reason, and it created for me a career change, which I don't regret at all. So
yeah, of course, like you should never stay in one place for too long. You always have to work as an artist forward. I don't think there's anyone who has been working on Transformers for the beginning of their career to the end.
On and off.
What?
Yeah. On and off.
Yeah, on and off.
Yeah, I came back to it for various reasons, but I wouldn't do it again unless there was some, Regen One there was a specific reason why we did that. But up until that point, I'd always said, I did some stuff for IDW and for Dreamwave. I did the Dreamwave stuff because I was out of work. I needed to work, and it was fun to work with Simon again. But I wouldn't necessarily choose to do it. But when Regen came along, it was an opportunity to tell the untold bit from when we did it for Marvel. So it was nice to think, we can get some completion around this, because it always felt like it was a job not quite finished.
Has it always been Marvel Comics? You never had a chance to work for DC Comics?
No, I spoke to DC editors at the time, and there were a couple of things that we looked at. There was a project that myself and Simon pitched to them, but for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. I was always a Marvel person anyway. I used to buy DC Comics as well when I was a young collector, but I was definitely always a Marvel person.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that sketchbook, Andrew Wildman Transformers sketchbooks. Do you still have that one?
I did. I did 3 of those. Okay. They're out of print now. I think I've still got a few of issue 3, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to collect them together as one book.
Yeah.
And release that. That came about purely because I was doing loads of sketches at conventions. You take a picture on your phone of some of them and you put it up on social media.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I've done so many of these things, and there are so many people that I don't ever get to see at conventions. People, every now and then people sort of get in touch with me and say, when are you going to do a convention in America, or when are you going to do another convention in Germany, or whatever, and those opportunities don't come up very often like they used to.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, maybe I ought to do some sketches and sell them. Some people were getting in touch and commissioning sketches. So I set up the Patreon account. And so I had some people who were interested that were ongoingly commissioning sketches. So I thought, well, I'll get a list and of all the characters from the Marvel Transformers universe, and I'll just work my way through the list.
Wow.
So I asked a couple of people, because there's the Marvel Transformers universe book from back in the day, which I had as reference. So I thought, well, I'll just work through that, do all those characters. And then John Paul Bove, he sent me copies of the updates that they did that, you know, and never made it into the book kind of thing. So that was a lot more. And then I mentioned it on social media, and then Bob Budiansky, he got in touch with me and he said, I don't think you realise actually how many there are. So he sent me his list. He got a list of them, and I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I can't do all these. So I put the list out to the patrons that were on Patreon, and of course they chose all their favourite ones, you know.
Yeah.
But I was only going to do one of each. So it did get to a point where we'd worked through the list, and they were finding it hard to choose any that they were interested in having a sketch of. So it pretty much just amounted to those 3 books. Because the rest of them were so obscure that they, you know, and there will be many people who would be interested in seeing those obscure characters, but
yeah, I would.
Yeah, that's a lifetime's work, I think. I haven't got time to do them anymore. But so they were a lot of fun, and I've sold them. The other thing I really liked about it was at conventions, you know, Transformers fans and collectors, whatever, would come up and they would go, oh wow, you know, there's loads of sketches in here, and they would buy them because they were sketches and they liked to see them in that very sketchy kind of form.
Yeah.
But then there would be other people who would come around with young children, and they'd say, oh look, do you want one of these colouring books? And they got it as a colouring book, and I thought, that's amazing. Yes, do it. Yes. Colour it in.
It's cute. I also have a sketchbook from what is his name now again? Jack Lawrence.
Oh yeah.
Of course, I got that one. I pay him extra for that too, because that's what you do when you want to support someone. But yeah, I was scouring the internet for your sketchbook.
I bought like 3 commissions from him when he was there. I remember.
Oh yeah.
I also got 2 from you, Andrew. So.
Cool. Jack's a great artist. I love his work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Let's see. When you started to draw Transformers, what was the part that you thought were the hardest? Was there like anything you thought were like struggling, like the perspective or the feeling of a mechanic to come to life?
Yeah, well, yes, it's interesting really, because all the kind of things of perspective and proportions and that was not really a problem as such. But my approach to them seemed to be different to most people. My approach to drawing Transformers was to draw them as if they were humans in Transformer costumes. Purely because when you relate to it that way, you kind of pose them in, it's easier to pose them in very dynamic ways. You think of the dynamic poses that, you know, John Buscema would use when drawing the Avengers. Use the same kind of poses, but then just essentially dress them up in all the Transformer, you know, sort of gear, armor, all that kind of stuff. And
all the boxes. Yeah,
that made for a better look, I thought, for me. And then as I pushed that more and more and more, people then used to say, oh yeah, Andrew Wildman, he does very organic Transformers. And then I did start to then sort of imbue more life into them as characters, where, you know, if they got hit, they'd have saliva or blood spurting out of their mouth. Which, I mean, it's essentially was engine oil, but it's like once you involve liquid and other things into it, it becomes a far more engaging and kind of visceral experience to watch these characters, and as you think of them less and less as robots, which they're not anyway, as you know, strictly speaking, but less and less as machinery and more as sentient beings.
Yeah, it's like when I see some of these Transformers art that they have these wrinkles going from the nose and down to the mouth, and that they're spitting and they have teeth, and a lot of fans are like wondering, why do Transformers have teeth?
Yeah. I mean, because I used to give them. I used to give them teeth, even if they were just very vaguely drawn in, just suggest I'd give them teeth. And so a lot of, people, I would get comments about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about they've got teeth, but people didn't like that. Some people didn't like that, but a lot of people were fine with that.
Yeah.
But just as a bit of a joke, there was one. I can't remember which issue it was. It was in the Marvel US book. It was when they're trying to get off of a planet. I think they're trying to get off of Cybertron.
Yeah.
And the last few Transformers and Autobots or whatever are getting onto ships, and then they're sort of taking off. And there's an incredible sort of wind that's blowing through, like. So in a static kind of illustrated narrative to illustrate wind, I mean, you can draw lines, but you want to put objects in the wind. So what artists normally do is put leaves, but obviously you don't have leaves on Cybertron. So I just have bits of junk get blown across in the wind. So there'd be all sorts of nuts and bolts and boxes and things. And I put a pair of false teeth.
Yes.
A pair of false teeth blowing in the wind. Just as a joke, but you don't see them, I don't think, because in the final product there's a speech balloon or something stuck over the teeth.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, the wind is also a very important way for a comic book to give action. This is why Batman has the cape or Superman has the cape. Transformers don't really have that. They just have to give the motion in another way.
Starscream has a cape.
Huh?
Starscream has a cape.
He had a cape.
Yeah. For 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
But yeah, strong gust of wind and a Transformer will lose their teeth.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I never was against the teeth in the Transformers. I was thinking about it, like in evolutionary way, why do they have teeth? Because what they feed on is just drinking substance, energon or oil. But at the same time, I think that it doesn't really matter if they have teeth or not. Maybe it helps them to speak better or whatever. Maybe it's a mouth guard to the system that they have in their head. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's Transformers. It's cool. Shut up.
Yeah, I think if you're on a mission to in some way justify and legitimize everything in Transformers, you're gonna come unstuck, really, aren't you?
Oh, I actually remember something. A fan was writing about it, and I think it was a she. She wrote like, yes, Transformers have teeth because before they knew how to make energon to a liquid, they were biting on energon to get it in them. I don't know. Energon is crystals from the beginning, I think, even in Generation One. But like, if they were chewing on energon, I don't know. No. It would be pretty bad teeth to bite into crystals.
I think you're overthinking this a little bit, Linda.
I think I am. I will leave it there. Fans, please explain teeth on Transformers. But yeah, is there any more project that you're working on for right now? Is it just the what was the name? Oxygen?
Yeah, in terms of comics, yeah. just Oxygen. So issue 2 is out. These things take a long time because I have to fit it in amongst all the TV work I do. But issue 3, which is called Yellow, because I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, they're named different. Each issue is a different colour. So Yellow, I've probably done the line art for maybe a third of it. Yeah. So I'm hoping I've got some spare time coming up soon, so I'm hoping to get that one done, and finished. But how quickly the rest will come out, I don't know. In an ideal world, if Thought Bubble happens in November, the convention in the UK, I'll have at least 5 issues, and there are 7 in total, for a very good reason. But I'm enjoying it. I'm absolutely loving it, and it comes off the back of Horizon. It's not a sequel to Horizon, but it's like a bookshelf partner to Horizon, in as much as it's the purpose of the story is for it to be an interesting adventure. But it's also based a lot on the personal development and coaching work that I've done over the years, which is why I wanted to do Horizon originally, which was to tell a tale, but for there to be a lot of inspirational content in it, not in a grand, overstated way, but just in a way that gently helps people deal with, anxieties or, fears or whatever. And it has had that result. Very definitely has had that result. Yeah. People who have read it very much respond to that side of it, as well as in just enjoying the characters and what happens. But one of the things that I found at conventions is that it's quite difficult to sell. It very much sells to the people who like slightly more European indie stuff. But it doesn't sell so much to Transformers fans, and it doesn't sell to sci-fi and superhero fans very easily. Some, but not a lot. Yeah. So I thought, well, what if I do a similar kind of narrative, but in a different genre? Like, what would people respond to? What would they pick up? And I've always been a lover of sci-fi, so I thought, well, if I do a similar kind of narrative, but as a sci-fi book with an astronaut, they'll probably more immediately be ready to engage with it. And that's proving to be the case with the 2 issues that have been released so far. It's also colour. Horizon was very deliberately not in colour. Originally it was all black and white, but then I managed to find a printer that would do what I wanted it to do, which was the beginning to be in colour and the end to be in colour, but in 2 different grades. The beginning of Horizon is in very muted colours, and the end is in very bright colours. And then the whole of the middle section, apart from flashbacks, is all in black and white for a very specific reason. But Oxygen is in full Mobius colour. Yeah,
I love it. Will you put those Transformers teeth in there?
No, there's no teeth will be seen in the production.
No teeth. That's fine. Gustav, didn't we have a question from our
previous guest had a question, but first I want to ask you about charity work you have been doing in the past years called Draw the World Together. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, Draw the World Together. Yeah, that was. Well, I was mentioning just a little while ago that I've done a lot of work in personal development and coaching. So I took part in some seminars back in 2000 and from about 2003 onwards, like coaching and personal development seminars. I wanted to do them for myself because there were certain areas of my life that I needed some help with. And that was amazing. I had lots of breakthroughs with that. And as a result of doing that, I then did some training on one of their courses as a coach. And one of the courses was, it was, I don't know how long, 6-week course, I think, maybe longer than that, where the people who participated in it, and which I did as well when I did it, had to do a project in an area where you would raise money for a good cause. And people did all sorts of different things. But I thought, well, what can I do to raise money for a charity, but tapping into the comics industry, because that's the kind of community that has got the biggest reach for me and the biggest number of people that, you know, might be interested. So originally it was going to be for me to get in touch with all the creators that I know, for them to donate a piece of artwork, and then simultaneously for me to start a social media campaign to let all the fans know that on a particular day there would be an auction on eBay. So, and then the auction would people would bid for stuff, and then whoever was the highest bidder would win that piece of artwork, and they would be sent that artwork by the person who had donated it. So I didn't have all the artwork. I was just creating the platform for that to happen. And it did really well. It was a great little event, and we raised quite a bit of money because we had some good stuff in there, really good stuff. And all the money went to Every Child, which is a charity that was trying to fund schools for street children in Cambodia. And so, but then I wanted to carry it on after that. So after the auction, I just got fellow artists at conventions to do occasional sketches that we would then live auction at conventions. But then the big breakthrough was that a computer games company called NC Soft, who a couple of people that worked for them quite high up in the company were comic book fans, one of which was a huge Transformers fan. So they said, we want to get involved in this, and the computer company want to sponsor it. So they would take a big stand at games events and at comic book events. They would pay all the expenses of the artists, so they would put them up in hotels and everything. And then we would all sit at their stand, and then they set up computer screens, and then all the gaming fans who were playing a game called City of Heroes, which was a superhero game, would come up, and we would draw their characters, because they create their own avatars in the game, you see. So they would bring their avatar up on the screen, and we would do a sketch of their character, and they pay for it, and they were happy, and we'd raise money for charity. And yeah, we raised quite many thousands of pounds doing that. So that was a joy, but it kind of ran its course, really. Yeah, and then I mean, it still exists as a concept, but but we're not doing anything with it at the moment. But you never know.
Maybe later.
Yeah, it might happen.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Our previous guest, EJ Sue, also had a question for you. I will split the screen with you and have him ask it. Let's see if he can bring it up here.
I want to know what's it like to work with Simon back in the day.
How was it?
Yes, it was great. Simon's awesome. He's really good. He's a great writer. One of the things about Simon is that before he was a writer, he was an editor. So he understands the structure of comics really well. He understands the logistics of putting comics together really well. So, and that plays into who he is as a writer as well. So he can be he can be quite demanding. Like if there's something he doesn't thinks will work, he'll very definitely tell you in no uncertain terms. you were talking about Cold Comfort and Joy, the first Transformers book that I did.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to do it because he'd seen the work that I'd done on Thundercats and he really liked it. So so I drew the pages for Cold Comfort and Joy and I sent them in. And so we had a phone call and he was like, this is really good and this is really good. And then he just tore it apart.
No.
He just like, you need to do more than this and this doesn't work and that's not. I was like, oh my God. And so I was a bit confronted by that and I was trying to justify what I'd done. Well, in the amount of time I've got and and all that kind of thing. And he said, well, I prefer you to kind of do a bit more work on it. I mean, I suppose we can get Stephen Baskerville to save it.
No. What a burn.
I know. He knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, he was basically poking me to try a bit harder. And I did a better job. And then it was a lot easier then for Stephen to do his job. And it came out really, really well. I did have a similar experience with him on Robocop. I did a couple of Robocop comics that he wrote as well. And there was one particular page that he just, I was on the phone to him and he was just saying, this isn't good enough. You've got to, da-da-da-da-da. But he was well known in the office when he was working at Marvel. Other people in the office would hear him talking to the artists and they'd all be hiding thinking, oh my God, why is he talking to them like that? But that's all part of the process. I mean, me and Simon are exactly the same age, but he had been in the industry longer than me. And because he'd also been an editor, I just had to bite my lip because I knew that what he was telling me would end up with a better product. So yeah, it can be hard to deal with, but I just trust his judgment. I mean, he was, we did a better job for his steerage, doing that. So he's great, and we became great friends, and we've done many projects together, and always have a good laugh at conventions. So I'd say he's a great person to work with.
But demanding.
He's demanding, and he was probably more demanding in the early days, maybe because we were both trying so hard to make an impression, to get onto better books and all that kind of thing. So, but we never really fell out. So and we're still good friends now. So
yeah,
I met him once, but I can say he's still demanding.
Yeah.
I was talking to him about issue 80 of the US comic Transformers, and Jack Lawrence was sitting beside and tried to get something said, and he just looked at him and said, "Get back to drawing."
Yeah.
He says it like it is. It's not. Well, that's fine. I prefer people like that. At least you know where you stand.
Yeah. Also, it's a better thing to have someone who tells you how they want the product to be instead of someone who doesn't say anything and it's just like getting pissed at you for not doing what they want when they're not telling you what they want.
Yeah.
I think those are the worst customers that I had. They're not saying anything. They're just like, yeah, just do you, and then they're not even happy with the end result. Yeah. That sucks. It's like, God damn it, tell me what you want.
Yeah. The thing with Simon though was that we did have lots of conversations about things, and he does value other people's opinion of something. I mean, if I would say why I thought something would work a better way, then he would go along with that. It's just that in those instances that I mentioned, I didn't have anything better to back it up. Do you know what I mean? He justified his opinion and it worked.
Yeah, of course there has to be a balance. Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
We just have two things left to do now.
Yeah.
And first we will do something we call Spin the Wheeljack.
Right.
I will split my screen. This is deciding what we will talk about the next episode. We always do that at random.
Okay.
So now I have that, and I will spin the still, and we will talk
it's
about
still
this
dark.
the next time.
I can't see
Okay.
anything. It's still
It's
dark.
lagging.
Yeah, it's lagging.
Yeah.
Is it up?
I will try to do it if it's coming up.
I can't see it yet.
Okay, then.
Me either.
Then you will have to trust me. This is the Skype. It's lagging.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, it is. I will
Yep.
try.
Let it rip.
I will let rip.
Oh, wow.
Wow, it's really laggy.
Yeah,
So next episode will be about Thundercracker.
Oh,
Wow.
a winner, Thundercracker.
Yeah. That is a really fun character nowadays to talk about. Not so much in the early days.
A nasty character.
Yeah.
Still special.
Yes. We usually have Linda do a quote from our episode, but we would ask you to do the quote now from the Transformers franchise. Is there a quote you would like to add? We always have it in the beginning of the episode.
Oh, wow. Okay. What, a Transformers quote?
Yeah. Like E.J. Sue did One Shall Stand, One Shall Fall.
Right. Oh, I guess mine will be, I'll probably get this wrong.
It's fine. It's fine.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah. There you go. That's Prime. Optimus Prime, see?
Yeah.
He's the boy. Yeah. Well, I think that was it. So,
Yes.
thank you for taking the time and talk to us, and hopefully we can meet in a real life soon when Corona is over and everything is open again. I would definitely love to come to England and take a beer with some of the Transformers dudes over there.
Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah, because
How was it being here with us?
yes, it's good. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
have a nice
and be safe.
Yes, and you. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.